Back in August, Keegan Swenson turned many heads when he won the Leadville 100 mountain bike race on the Santa Cruz hardtail with drop handlebars. A lot of people, us included actually, were probably very quick to judge what we thought about that decision.
I mean, I just want to say first, his bike's so nearly unbelievably cool.
But today, I'm lucky enough to have two Orbea Oizes. One with a conventional setup and another, with drop handlebars. We've got these two bikes to see what I really think about it. But before I commit to riding this abomination, make sure if you like this sort of stuff, hit that subscribe and the like button. Drop bars on mountain bikes are nothing new. I can actually hear Owen over 100 miles away banging on about John Tomac.
Drop bars do genuinely have a long history because, well, you can change your position. And Wilderness Trail founder, so WTB, Charlie Cunningham ran drop bars on all his bikes, even his first one, which was sub 24 pounds and made of aluminium and had like boost spacing and brakes that worked. Oh, and 2x drivetrain, which nobody else had. Oh, no, wait.
And that must have been 30 plus years ago, but they got a lot of attention because of one big mountain bike race this year. The Leadville 100 is a bike race held in, you guessed it, Leadville, Colorado. Don't let the name fool you though, the race is actually 105 miles long. Because of how long the race is, racers try to make their bike as efficient as possible, but comfort is also a consideration. Those 6 hours or so in the saddle. And for a few of those racers, that involved trying something different with their setups. Keegan Swenson fitted drop bars to his Santa Cruz highball hardtail, and Dylan Johnson fitted some to his Allied BC40 full suspension bike. Dylan did some number crunching and wind tunnel testing and worked out that over those 105 miles, his drop bar setup would be 6 minutes faster. Keegan backed those figures up by not only winning the race, but nearly breaking his own course record despite getting a puncture early on and having to switch out his wheel. Well, the Leadville 100 is a certain type of mountain bike race. Whilst there are some short technical single track parts, for the most part over the 105 miles, you could almost call it a gravel race. Long distance, less technical mountain bike race. So the marginal gains you get from these drop bars are worthwhile for that, but will we see any cross-country World Cup races using drop bars? Well, no, they are banned. Everyone knows that. Rule 4.1.040, you can't run your drop bars in cross-country races. But also, I think those tracks have got so technical. You know, the bikes have gone up to some of them being 120mm full suspension bikes. Just a couple of years ago, people were racing hardtails and 100mm bikes, which they still are. But I just don't think the drop bars would suit being able to ride those sections fast. But what about us in the middle? I'm thinking of myself as well. Is a super fast setup really needed? Well, no. But I do like to ride long distance, be efficient and fast, yes, sometimes, but also be comfortable as well. Should we be giving drop bars a go? Let's find out. Let's start with the regular Orbea Oiz. My bike, it is a beaut to look at and it is featherweight. In fact, Orbea says bike is built to fly and that's hard to argue with. Obviously lots of carbon fibre. This is the M Pro edition, so that's their OMX premium carbon fibre build. But it's the bars, the cockpit setup, I guess we're most interested in. So this bike comes with a 75mm stem and 760mm wide carbon bars, which is absolutely on the money for me, but probably slightly wider than a lot of cross-country racers have. Now to the other Orbea Oiz, which I think is somewhat challenging to the eye. Actually, someone just rode past and shouted, "That's blasphemy." Some strong words there. Look at the bars. So Keegan Swenson had some 37cm bars, so fairly narrow. And why roadies measure in centimetres, not millimetres? I don't know, you tell me. Dylan went a bit wider with 42 centimeters. I am running some clearly massive 44 centimeter wide bars. The drop on these bars is 115 millimeters, back to millimeters, that's funny, isn't it? Which is pretty damn low, even compared to my cross-country bike. The stem is pretty slammed on there, but if I'm holding on to these drops at all, dare I do it, my hands are almost in line with the top of the fork. Pretty wild. And for you stats fans out there, these bars have 5 degrees of drop flare and 11 degrees of drop out sweep. I have no idea what that means, but are they faster than that bike? Right, I'm going to try these two bikes out in a few different scenarios. The first one being a cross-country loop. It is going to involve some gravel out on the fire roads and some more technical stuff on the single track in the woods. It's not going to be 105 miles long, maybe 5, I don't know, we'll find out. But I'm going to put a time to each bike. Let's start with the familiar, and I'm with the conventional Oiz, and I'm ready. Are you ready? Let's go. It is a muddy, twisted little climb this. And you know, it does feel a bit like I'm on a gravel bike, but it's weird how, well, I've never ridden a gravel bike with tyres this wide, and it feels a bit like a monster truck, but it works. Okay, initial impressions of the drop bar bike. Feels weird. It feels like a compromise at the moment, I've got to say. It doesn't feel like a gravel bike, it just feels like a funky mountain bike. And the bar tape is massive, so the diameter it's huge compared to my bar, you know, my normal grip, should I say. And obviously I've got these Shimano GRX brakes and shifters on the hoods. And this left-hand one, that actually operates as the dropper post. But one disadvantage of that is I don't have the squid lockout on the other bike, and I do use that on these fire roads, so currently cannot lock this bike out. Downhill, it felt like a very small part of that ride. Obviously, I kind of did bias the ride probably a bit more to gravelly stuff. Well, definitely more than I would usually do on a cross-country bike, for sure. But on the downhills, which was short, feels pretty wild, but not crazy, not as mad as I thought. Actually, on the drops, you have to be on the drops to get good brake control. Otherwise, up here, it's comfy, it's very riding 90% of the time, but you're just not be able to brake hard enough. And obviously you are stretched out, but you know, it is obviously not a gravel bike, it's a full suspension cross-country bike. And it actually kind of feels like the limiting factor to how fast you can go is your grip. It's not necessarily that position. It was fine. I did find it a bit weird when I did have to brake hard. Obviously the levers kind of float around a bit because you can push them in to change gear or put your post up. Wouldn't want to do that when I was going down the hill. But they're not as kind of efficient, I suppose. I didn't feel as good on the brakes and that did limit me a little bit, but you could bomb on it. Climbing, it didn't feel that different, I've got to say. Obviously, most of the time I'm riding on the hoods or on the flats, so it puts me in a really similar position to the cross-country bike anyway. You know, I have raced some cyclocross and it did kind of feel like that. In the muddy climb I was on, the bike is drifting around up the climb, which is quite good fun. But obviously my tyres are way wider than I've got on any gravel or cyclocross bike I've ever ridden. So that brings a different feel to it, but actually it climbs really well. And on the fire roads when I'm bombing, you can feel the difference in aero, you know, just having narrow bars, your arm position being that, it feels like I'm bombing. But yeah, I would say climbing is where I felt the least difference on this bike. Okay, should we dig into the results? So the course was 8.93 kilometers long, near enough 100 miles, and 225 meters of climbing. Obviously, it is a much shorter course. I wanted to try and keep my efforts the same across both bikes, and I felt like I did that, but I'm on the bike I've just finished on, so the Drop Bar bike. I did it in 34 minutes 15, average speed of 15.6 kilometers an hour, maximum 53 kilometers an hour. That's pretty quick, isn't it? Now, on back to the cross-country bike, which I did earlier, and I did that a lot faster, 31 minutes 19, so almost 3 minutes faster. That surprised me, but actually, when you look into the details, so average speed is higher, obviously, 17.2 kilometers an hour, but the max speed is quite a bit lower, 45 kilometers an hour to 53 on this bike. So, yeah, overall, much faster, but if you're bombing along, this is the bike to be on. But obviously I'm kind of, you know, the average speed tells you the story you need to know. And on the more technical stuff, the downhills, although this does feel fast, I'm not convinced it is actually faster when it gets more technical. It just feels scarier. Like I said, the levers are moving around. When you hit the bumps, your fingers are going all over the place. And that is, you know, a 760 bar on that bike. It is a really stable place to be. Even at high speed, yes, it's not as high on the max, but that's probably on that fire road. I can dig into it, but I'm sure it is. It's not down the single track. On the single track descents, it's just much more stable bike, but interesting. Obviously, Keegan Swenson is a high-level professional athlete and with experience at level 100. He wasn't guessing when he put his drop bars on. He knew that was going to be better for him. And I'm sure we'll see more next year, although then you lose the advantage of having them. But I think that will be the case for that sort of racing. Does it translate to everyone else? I don't think so, not for me at least. If I was doing a really extreme ride, where I was spending long hours in the saddle, maybe. Nice to have the different positions. Definitely better for your wrists, I think. And having some super thick bar tape is quite nice as well, to be fair, but it does make riding them a bit weird. And also, it's not quite simple as just swapping your bars. You know, you do need the levers. You then need a rear mech as well. There's some cross-compatibility with Shimano with their GRX gravel group set and their mountain bike drivetrain. But it's not that easy. You're gonna have to swap out cables as well because they'll be different lengths. They don't play ball with lockouts, like I've said already. So I think for most people, it's probably a step too far. And for me, like, you know, even on a cross-country bike, I do love smashing out the big rides, but I'm still there to really enjoy the fast downhill sections, and it is too much of a compromise for me. But fill your boots. If you like the look of it and you want to try it out, let us know in the comments down below. I'd love to know why you're using it, what sort of thing you're doing with it. But yeah, get involved in the discussion in the comment section.